Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul School and Foundation's Global Spotlight. My name is Marie Mohler, and I'm an author, intuitive, and a messenger of the rising hero's journey within. I'm here today with Joanna Plaza and Lee Peters, who are living the life of the hero that we spotlight here at Whole Soul School and Foundation. And I'm so excited to introduce our audience to both of you. And I want to thank you for joining me this morning. It's early where you are. There's at least a 2-hour time difference between us. And I want to thank you. First of all, just welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for hosting us.
Yes. So Joanna and Lee were living in the UK. And when we reflect on the hero's journey, which is a lot of the context for our conversations about personal transformation, because that's what our messages are all about here. We have Good Vibes Broadcasting, where we're messengers here of the hero's journey, and we are all heroes in our journeys, but sometimes we have to hear a call or we're activated to go on the journey, and we don't necessarily know that this is the journey that's meant for all of us. We read about people who do extraordinary things in their lives, and we think, oh, only those few people get to have those experiences, and the rest of us live in the mundane, right? We're actually all heroes on the hero's journey. We start out in this kind of ordinary world. And I thought maybe we could start today by you guys each speaking to your own experience of what you were doing, how you were living, maybe the kind of work you do in the mundane world. Like where did this journey begin? Where were you just a few months ago when you were living more of your previous life, like your former life before you took the leap?
Yeah, do you want to start or should I?
Yeah, I can start. So just a few months ago, I was doing my old job as an accountant because that's what I was trained in originally. And I was doing a maternity contract in an office. And yes, it was really stressful, really intense. The people were really nice, so that's one good thing from that world. But for a long time, I felt that that kind of lifestyle just didn't suit me anymore. Getting up at 7, sitting at the desk for 8 hours, and then being so exhausted after work that I wasn't able to do anything else, to learn anything, to see anything. And for a long time, I felt that, there must be more to life than the mundane, the programmed societal routine of Monday to Friday work.
Right.
Also, the big trigger for me for this journey was also the death of my dog Snowy, because I felt like he kind of released me by him crossing over. He kind of released me to answer that call for the adventure.
Yeah, right. Beautiful. Yeah. Lee, tell us about.
My story kind of started, I guess, from 10 years ago, but I'll try and make it brief. But since I've been to university, my kind of adventurous side kind of opened up. I met people who did things like rock climbing, snowboarding, mountain biking, things that my family were not really into. Like I was kind of brought up in the general kind of society, like your family have kids, they go out to the park and that kind of stuff. And it kind of opened up my eyes to a new world, which I loved. So I did a bit of snowboarding. I went to a trip all by myself, didn't know anyone there. I had a good time. Also had some bad experiences there as well, like, mishaps with people, but as you do. And then, I met some people who did rock climbing, joined in on their adventures, and it's fantastic, and I enjoyed it. And after university, I said to myself, okay, I need a break. I actually heard a story of a friend who went to New Zealand for 3 months in the summer holiday. He told me his itinerary and what he did, and it sounded great, and I wanted to do this by myself. I literally stole his itinerary and went to the like a travel agents the next day and said, this is what I want to do, and they set it up for me. So I kind of followed like a maybe like a program schedule to begin with, but that's what led me to the first step. And then I went to this New Zealand, and I just fell in love with the place, the land, the people, the adventure. I had no job, but I was just kind of like working for accommodation, working to get a little bit of money in the construction business and stuff like this. And I actually extended my stay to 7 months and kind of stepped away from the generic travelers, itinerary. And this just opened up a whole new world for me. And then when I came back, I got back into the job. This is my first job. I worked at like Bison, and I just didn't know what I was doing there in this job. I kind of like I couldn't follow what the task they wanted me to do. Maybe my mind just wasn't in it. I felt like my mind was spiritually somewhere else. And yeah, after about 2 years, I kind of said to myself, okay, I need to work and travel. And when you have that plan in your head, I found that it never really works out, because this happened over 10 years. I was like, okay, I need to save enough money. I need to travel. Maybe I traveled for a month or 2 months, and it just never worked out. And I was always thinking to myself, okay, I need to get 10,000 or 20,000 pounds or dollars to make sure that I can travel with this amount of money. And that, again, that plan just never works out. And of course, in between, I spent a lot of my income on hobbies. I got into like kayaking, whitewater kayaking up to like grade 4 or 5 rivers, which is quite high level. Did a bit of skydiving, scuba diving. So that obviously doesn't help my savings, but it does help my adventure side. And that was the important thing for me at the time. And then just a few months ago, I was made in January, actually, this year, 2021, I was made redundant. And I was in this job for 3 years, just depressed and unhappy with toxic environment, toxic people, and like yelling at me for no reason. It really felt like this. They couldn't give you constructive criticism. There's just anger. And I was so depressed. It was getting to the point of having like kind of bad thoughts, about what to do with my life. But I also knew that I needed to get out of this. And I said to myself, okay, this year I'll save money, and then it didn't happen. Next year, okay, I saved a bit of money, and then it didn't happen. So the redundancy kind of came at the right time. We was trapped in COVID pandemic and craziness for the whole year, and I was ready to leave at that point. I just didn't care anymore. I didn't care that I didn't have enough money. I just wanted to start the adventure. And I felt to myself, okay, it's going to happen as soon as the pandemic ends or whatever. But actually, the redundancy came first, and then just shortly after, I met Joanna. And this was actually quite a nice story as well, which we'll say in a short bit, I'm sure. And yeah, and then this is kind of where it opens up to this side of life. I just decided to travel little money, just making a bit of money on the online teaching, and that's it really. I know that's a bit of a longer story than Joanna's, but I felt like all that was important.
There's so many bits, and you even got the chance to have a trial. You got to practice the journey from your friend that told you about that adventure. So you had already dipped your toes in the water. We each come to the hero's journey in our own ways, and we're each called in our own ways. And I think sometimes it can certainly help, in the two of you, you had some confidence that you'd already, followed an itinerary, and then you went kind of off grid from there, right? And you were more comfortable with even the possibility of leaving what was known into the unknown. And sometimes, exactly, when you come together with another person, a partner, an ally, a friend, and you go on the adventure, that can also be a huge part of what steers your compass and helps you take that leap. So both of your stories are so compelling. What I feel when I was thinking about you guys, and I love what you're doing. So this is going to be a series. We're going to continue to talk with you guys about what you're learning, what you're living. So many people, especially with the global situation, with the pandemic that continues to play on, crave the life that you're living. And so just hearing from people who did take the leap, who Joanna, you described the mundane of like the everyday, just that kind of rote rehearsal where we're trained from like birth until we reach adulthood that, you know, this is it, like that the hero's journey is, yay, you know, you get to work in a cubicle 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that's the end. That's like the light at the end of the tunnel where everything begins for you. And truly for some people, that may be part of their experience and they get a lot of meaning out of that. They find ways to make it meaningful. But I think a lot of people in our world are looking to lift off the page of their own story, right? They're living a life that either they've somehow, just in this last 18 months or 2 years of this experience of the pandemic, I think we might be looking through different lenses at our lives. We look through different lenses at our jobs, at, you know, we look at security differently. Like, what is security? What is that really? What are our beliefs and the attachments we have to those beliefs about what is a good life? What is security? What is joy? What is living who we are? So I just love even that introduction to what you both were doing. And Lee, yours, like your life, when you tried to do the conventional life, the traditional life, it never fit. It was like a costume that you would put on and you're like, wait, no, this isn't who I am, right? And you were always already in all your spare time doing the things you wanted to be doing. And I look at when you said you were trying to save money, it's interesting how it's a 10-year period for you. For you, that's how long it was. But I think the whole time you were visual motor rehearsing what you're living now, right? So, you know, even me in my experience, when I've been in the hero's journey, I've spent a lot of money to take the journey as well, whether that was workshops or books or, you know, sessions with coaches or whatever that might be. And I ultimately learned to even look at those things as that was my tuition. That was my investment in my self-discovery, right? That was your investment in the hero's journey of like, somehow that helped you take the leap and leave the ordinary world and to step into more of the unknown. You crave the unknown, you know, your spirit, Lee, likes that process of discovery. And still, I'm sure there are moments where you have to figure things out, where you don't know exactly where you're going to be next. And we'll be talking about how you guys are living what you're living. So maybe next, because the call to adventure was pulsing in both of you. Both of you were hearing the call to something more, something different, but you had not met yet.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to tell just a little bit about how you guys met. And I find the timing of all of that fascinating, but yeah, please share.
It's interesting. I mean, tell your side of the story. And I'll tell
Okay. Oh, so when like I mentioned, my dog, who was kind of the main focus of my life, he passed away in September. And I had to learn to do my walks, my lonely walks instead, but I still found them very soothing, especially in the pandemic. And so one day in March, on a Sunday, I thought, okay, it's a lovely sunny day in March, which is quite rare in England. So I drove to my favorite spot by the River Thames, and I didn't know which place I want to choose. I had two places in my mind that I wanted to walk on that day. And I thought, okay, if there's a parking space here, that means I am meant to walk here. And so I drove past and there was a parking space waiting for me. And I thought, okay, I'm meant to walk here today. And yeah, so I just walked along the meadow by the river. And that day I felt like I wanted to do a much, much longer walk than I usually do. Because usually before Snowy, my dog, he didn't like very long walks, so I only walked to a certain point and then we came back. But because I was on my own and I thought, this is a lovely day, I'm going to do much longer. Let's see what lies beyond that point that I normally stop. And I walked a little bit further, like an hour, another hour maybe. And then there was Lee sitting by the river with his kind of drawing pads around him and a little musical instrument. And and he was sitting in front of like a lovely kind of a estate house. It was kind of like a touristy place that normally tourists go to on the other side of the river. And I just thought it was unusual for a man to sit by the river with his kind of creative things around him. So I thought, I think he might be an interesting person. So I just said, my chat up line was like, "That's a lovely view, isn't it?" And that's how we got talking.
Yeah, and up before that point, of course, on my side, I mean, so near where this place is near where I live as well. And there's also a lovely organic community farm, which is worth mentioning, called Hempen, I believe it's called Hempen. And it's got a couple of different farms there. And I spent a lot of time here. So I was with lots of spiritual kind of friends, which is kind of new to me. I've joined my spiritual journey by myself, and I've met these new people around me just suddenly pop up out of nowhere as soon as my job ends, because this, of course, was a few months after I was made redundant. And it kind of felt like everything started fitting in place here. I knew I was ready to travel. I was deciding to like maybe travel around Europe by bike to begin with, and I just wanted to open up my creativity much more. And I love sitting by the rivers in nature. I love drawing, like, you know, sitting by hammocks and stuff like this. So I just decided this day just feels like a good day to go by a river, and I had no idea what called that to me. I don't do this spot very often at all. This is like probably the first time I actually went to the specific spot, which is interesting. And I walked maybe 15 minutes to get to this point, and sat down. And I was just looking around. I wanted to talk to people, because again, this is during the pandemic. Lots of people were, not everyone of course, but lots of people were kind of afraid to be near each other. And I was kind of hoping to myself that someone would talk to me today, you know. And I saw Joanna actually just talking to some other guys, two younger teenagers or something. I think she's talking about the view as well, because they started talking to her, and I was thinking,
I love my views.
Thinking to myself, I want to talk to this woman, and even though I'm quite a confident person, when it comes to like thinking of someone I'm interested in, I just don't know what to say. You know, I'm kind of like stumble. It's like I was almost staring at her until she looked around and then said, "It's a nice view, isn't it?" It's like, yes, it is a nice view. And then she sat down with me, and we just started talking a little bit, and yeah, it just kind of like went from there. And she actually asked for my number at the end. I wanted to ask for the number in my head, but she actually went through the process of asking. It felt kind of a bit, you know, like psychedelic in a way, with your mind, you know.
But it felt like we kind of, it felt to me like we kind of clicked straight away, like our frequency was very similar.
Yeah.
Yes, it's amazing all the things. If our listeners really listen in to what you just shared, even in that brief, you know, story of how you met, you had to listen, Joanna, to the parking space, right? Because you could have easily, there could have not been a parking space, and you said okay, and interpreted that as, oh, I meant to go the other direction then.
Yes. Yeah.
And potentially not have met at least that day. I'm somebody who believes that the universe, if you're meant to sync up and connect in the ways that you have, it will come another way. But you know, the universe is always conspiring to bring the right people, the right experiences, the right openings and opportunities into our life. And you can hear it just even in that, how the parking space was there, and you decided to go longer for your walk than you normally walk. So you extended further, and you felt kind of, you didn't use this language, but like there was something magical about the day, that you were listening inside beyond anything that your mind was really thinking. You just listened to the nudges, and you followed that, which is again practicing in some ways the hero's journey, because the hero is in a process of learning how to listen deeper. So here you are walking further than you normally walk, and Lee is having this feeling of like, you know, maybe I want to talk to more people, or I want to get outside, and it's a beautiful day. You said you don't normally sit where you went.
Yeah, it kind of felt like a calling in the same way as well, you know, just kind of like what you're describing with Joanna. But I mean, I could easily have gone in my back garden. I could have easily gone around the corner, but just decided to go to that point. Yeah,
Right. And there's this like divine intersection, right? Where you do in fact meet. And even the conversations you were having in your mind, you know, Lee, you were having like thinking about her, asking for her number, or whatever the things that you might have wanted to say that was all going on inside you.
Yeah.
Joanna was picking up on all those cues, and she was providing some of the words that helped the two of you make this connection and then exchange a way to connect after that. Because again, if you listen to what's being said, like if our audience listens to what you're saying, but also what you weren't saying, there was this listening the whole time, and then there was this awareness to find a way to connect again, right? And you did. Obviously, you guys continued to spend more time together. You found out that you really enjoyed each other, and very quickly, I think probably we're sharing some of what you know, your redundancy. And I want to say I've heard that a number of times now, especially talking with you, Joanna. That's basically being laid off in America, right? You were basically let go of your job. You weren't fired, you're just let go, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, sharing those stories about like who you are, getting to know each other. But it wasn't long before you guys were probably talking about more the bigger things that are inside each of you, things you really craved or wanted. Or Lee, I don't know which one of you initiated. Was it you, Lee, that was sharing your dream of like being on your bike? Because we haven't even told our listeners where you are, so I'm sure they're at the edge of their seat, right?
Sure. I mean, like, kind of shortly after we met up a few more times, and on the second time we met, I actually wanted to be clear that I planned to travel the world by bike. This was been my dream for the last year. Before this year, I wanted to travel the world anyway, but then for whatever reason, it called me to do it by bike. And I always wanted to, of course, be honest, so there's no expectations if someone wants to stay here. But later on, as we'll talk about, I'm sure, it turned out that Joanna wanted to travel as well. So we kind of had a few months where we just talked about what can we do to put this together, you know?
Yeah.
And the manifestation.
So we started talking about traveling by bike, and at the beginning I wasn't very, I thought, no, I can't do it, it's too much. I just couldn't even see myself doing it, but by bike, yes, because I wanted to travel just backpacking, because that's what I was used to.
And of course, in my past experience, I've done a bit of this, like a few months here, a few months there. So I did New Zealand when I was like maybe 21, and when I was 26, I also went 3 months for South America. And although I love the backpacking experience, I always felt like I was missing out on something, because even if you take the buses to one city to another, you always tend to be going to a tourist destination, or, you know, the advice coming from other people doing the same thing is to go here, but this is also a tourist destination. And I love to connect with the community, the locals, and I did this a little bit when I went to South America, but I wanted more of it. So this was my idea, to travel by bike, take your time, take it slow. I don't need to know when I end this trip. I just want to enjoy it, every moment of it. And this is what I was trying to explain to Asha, because this is
Joanna.
Yes, Joanna. Asha's her nickname. Yeah, Joanna. I haven't forgotten the name. This is what I was explaining to Joanna, because this was your first time doing a serious backpacking trip.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that I never biked anywhere. I didn't even own a bike, apart from like a little one from my mom. So for me, Lee had to do quite a lot of persuasion to say, you know, we take things slowly. I let you to get used to it. Because I didn't want to race. I didn't want to rush to any places. And but I was still quite scared, but I just decided to join him on this journey and just see what happens. And I thought to myself, you know, if I can't go by bike, then maybe I do the bus and Lee will do the bike, and we work something out between each other.
I mean, nothing has to be set in stone is the whole point. We can also like kind of go our separate ways at some point and meet up again another time. We don't need to be always together. That's the important thing to take into consideration. But of course, I mean, I am quite into my fitness as well, which I think was why Joanna was worried that I might rush ahead all the time. but at the same time, the purpose of this trip was to take things slowly. And it's just trying to meet in the middle somewhere for this as well. And we've had our ups and downs during this trip on that basis as well, of course.
I'm sure, because you're figuring it out as you go. There's no rule book, there's no specific map. You guys are truly living the experience of being a creator. You're creator beings, and you are creating your way every single day, right? And so even doing the I call it the visual motor rehearsal, but when you were visioning, you were talking about manifesting this trip. And again, just I love to, flash back to what you were living in, because now we see you've taken the leap. People hear more and more of your story. But, many people are in the experience of going to work, maybe working in a cubicle, maybe working from home, in some way, maybe in some kind of a box, a life that they feel like they've either grown beyond already or they are outgrowing, just like when you're a kid and you outgrow your clothes and one day they just don't fit anymore. You can keep trying to squeeze into them, but they really, you have grown past, you've physically grown and transcended that experience. And that's what you guys were doing. So it's amazing how there was, as a creator being, there is this also processing, which I don't know how much of this you guys lived and was part of your conversations, but I'm sure you have the conversations. Well, if we go, what would that look like? Then I'm sure there's conversations with a big but. There's the hesitation, but what about this? What about this? What about my family? What about, all the logistics? What about the finances? What about, we ask ourselves these questions because there is another stage in the hero's journey that talks about the refusal of the call. So we hear it calling us. We're in the ordinary world. We hear the call to adventure, and that there's an excitement about that, right? We first sometimes indulge it. Sometimes the call comes differently to different people. But for you guys, this was kind of like a fun, a fantasy-like experience that was becoming very quickly a reality in the intersection and the connection, the convergence of your lives, which is no accident, in the way the universe works. You guys know this too. We attract into our experience a vibrational match. So you guys were matched, but you still had the details to work out to even get to a point to formulate a plan that would launch you into the journey. And so it is miraculous to hear just even the first part of your story, just a little bit of the overview of how that played out. And then I'd imagine over the next couple of months, you're still listening. You have to get used to, Joanna, you're thinking when you were traveling, you might have even been envisioning yourself traveling alone because, you hadn't met yet. So you didn't know somebody would be traveling. So all of your visions of how you're going to be traveling, now there's another person next to you, right? Somebody, and I'm sure there's blessings that come from that. And there's challenges. Like you said, you guys have to negotiate things differently because you're having this experience with another person. And then there are the fears. There's the fears and the doubts and the things that almost would make us turn away. It feels so good to think about going. And then there's all these things. So when the bike enters the equation, because that had not been in your visioning at all, Joanna, I'm sure in all your visions, there was no bike, right? There was no biking whatsoever. But then Lee comes in and brings his experience where he has been doing these practice runs. He's been exploring the adventure and gaining the strength, the stamina, the confidence, trying it on. And you also feel like you have a spirit and a personality that, really, this is so well suited for you, Lee, even though I'm sure you have doubts and fears and things come up, because that's the human experience that comes up too. So I just want to, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to say, I think for my doubts and things, that's kind of been over the last 10 years, really, in bits and bobs, I traveled for 3 months in between jobs was my idea. Maybe that's how I do it in the future. I was thinking at the time, that's what I did in 2016, but I didn't want to leave. That's the problem, the traveling experience. And right. It kind of got to the point where I was just had enough, and that was it. I'm going to take the leap or do nothing at all.
Yes, there is a point when you can't turn away. I think I just keep reflecting on the hero's journey because it's part of our language and you guys are living it. And I'm bringing it in more into this conversation that I have in many other podcasts. So it's interesting when I hear you guys speaking, because there's a point when you cross the threshold. There's a point where you go through enough stages and you've practiced enough, or you've rehearsed enough, or you've visioned it enough. And then it's like, I must do this. It's like you're compelled. You know that more of you wants to go than parts of you want to stay. You know, there's this tipping point, and you had already been practicing that. And I would even say, when you said in 2016, or the reference point you have some of the trips that you had, and you had to squeeze into that job, I think you said you had for 3 years, but the whole time it was like you were living somebody else's life. For you, your life is meant to be doing more of what you're doing. And yet something, I don't know what it was, maybe it was parents, maybe it was, just the messages that we grow up with, that at a certain point you're like, well, I have to go get a real job now, right? This is a few years back, but you went for the conventional job to save up the money, I guess, to do more of what you wanted to be doing. So you were going to use the job, I guess, to live the life that you're now living.
I mean, at the start for myself, it was actually like when I left college, I decided I wanted to be a carpenter. That's what my dad did. And I thought that's what I was going to do. I was like, okay. And I remember saying this exact sentence. I was probably 18. I said to my dad, look at all these people going to university. They're going to continue studying, yet I'm going to make money. And my dad said to me, well, I think you should go to university. He gave me kind of his rationale and reasons, and always kind of like pushed me to do it. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I said, what do I enjoy? I enjoy creating. Product design is a qualification that's available in Bournemouth. Bournemouth, I can surf, so I can try surfing. And that was my decision. I went to Bournemouth to study product design. No expectation, not knowing what I was doing. Turned out I loved this degree, and I actually wanted to do this for my life. I wanted to design sustainable products, but the problem is that work is not sustainable. And I kind of like kept falling into traps deeper into the rabbit hole I didn't want to get into. But I also think that was my way of thinking that pushed me that way. At the time, I didn't want something so much that I ended up getting it. And during this process, though, this whole 10 years, it's also important to mention that I met so many different people who are kind of for these traveling experience, people who are for working their whole lives. And it kind of, I met also these wonderful people who did these different ventures, and this is what brought it all together. Without that string of meeting different types of people, I don't know where I'd be today, but I also feel it's very important to go through that.
Yes, you were literally, basically, consciously at some level, connecting with other people's experiences and trying them on through their stories, right? And trying on the story of somebody who works a very traditional life and maybe travels every summer or on holidays and things, but that lives otherwise a smaller, more predictable life in a way.
Yes.
Where comfort and security and stability and those kinds of things are the priorities, and life falls in line after that. But there was a part of you that I think always knew that you were never really going to fit that mold. You were trying to find a way to work and then leave work and then go have experiences for a number of months. And that may still be the case for you. You may still be somebody that finds your way back to a version of a mixture of that.
Mm-hmm.
But trying it on is so vitally important. I've lived this in so many ways in my life. I don't just do the visual motor rehearsal. I don't just vision the manifestation of the way. I do try things on. And what I love that I've learned in my journey, and you guys have as well, is that you can always change. Like if for some reason, if what you guys were visioning and planning didn't work out, you can always return, or you can always go somewhere else. You can always change course and create something different if what you tried to create isn't aligned for you anymore or just isn't working. So okay, so here we are. You guys have met, you're talking, the bike has entered the conversation, right? Joanna, you're having to visualize more and more of like traveling, but in a very different way. Now there's like a physical stamina let alone the like spiritual stamina, the financial stamina, the, you know, courage stamina, all those things. But now you have that you're going to literally be propelling yourself through this adventure. Tell us.
Yeah, and also there's a big part of letting the old things go. So both of us had to go through the process of getting rid of our stuff that was cluttering our lives, you know, and physically our houses, our rooms. So we both went through the process of, you know, sorting and selling things. Sometimes there were things that we kind of attached to, and we paid a lot of money for this during our lives of the forced security. And we had to like let it go for very tiny little money to try to put the money away for our journey. But that was also quite a kind of a cathartic process, to let go of the clothes, of the cars, you know, like sort out our affairs, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I always thought I was living not too expensive. So like, when I first got my job and I first decided to get my flat, I bought so much expensive furniture, so much expensive TVs, and I just kind of realized after about a year, what am I doing with my life? You know, I remember meeting a gamer who was so into his games, and I was at the time too, that he spent his life revolved around it. And that was kind of switched to me to like, okay, I don't need games in my life, therefore I don't need a TV, I don't need this massive sofa and all these extra bobs that I spent for no reason. So kind of during the next 5 years, I kind of like try to keep my life minimal, but then of course going through this process realized how much stuff I actually still accumulated, you know, from my job. I had so many suits that I just never wore. I mean, I do like suits, to be honest, but I never wore my job because I didn't want to wear them in this particular job. And yeah, the £1,000 I spent on some suits, I remember selling for £2 in a car boot sale. You know,
Yeah.
just letting it go was hard, but it also felt empowering after that. You know,
Yes.
like,
And we are both like, oh my gosh, we paid so much for this, but we're getting so little for it.
But we are getting more spiritually, like in our minds, in our bodies.
Yes.
It felt, there was kind of contrast of thinking there, but
Right.
Yeah.
And also we gave a lot of things to the lady who sends things to Africa. We just didn't want any money from her, but we're glad that it's going to some people that needed it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, those are those moments where you make the decision, you know, you're ready to let it go. However, it needs to be let go. It certainly would have been nice for more money for those items to support you in your trip, right? And more of a win-win exchange.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've had that experience too, where my family's donated some things where it was actually still in like perfect, pristine condition. Because we all know sometimes donated goods might need to go to the trash instead of being a donation. But then there's these things that we give that are still in like perfect, pristine condition. And somebody is a huge benefactor of that. So that's another aspect of the journey of like unexpected blessings came to someone from those items that you donated. And you also got lighter and less attached. I mean, I think you're kind of, we can use the language of leaving the matrix. You know, you were leaving this time around because both of you had visioned this and felt this calling for many years. You too, Joanna, you know, feeling this calling of just always knowing that you were going to be traveling and that your work was the thing that just supported your, you know, your real calling in life, which was to be free, right? To explore, to experience, to meet people, to travel the world, to go other places. So there's all these elements, and any one of these things that we've mentioned so far could be an entire podcast, because there's a whole process of getting to a place where you are willing to let go of the very things that you spent time and money to accumulate, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge process.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like looking at tiny living and all these kind of people do these kind of things. It is true. I mean, it's important just to keep things that bring absolute joy to your life. And for me, that turned out to be my sports equipment and just a few other items, you know, things that people have given me over the years. And that's about it. And for you, Joanna, I think it was, what was it? Anything?
Some books. Yeah, just left a few books, few clothes, and some kind of items that
Yeah.
kind of make me happy. But yeah, my whole life at the moment is just in a few boxes back in England.
And it just feels good when, if we're ready, if we need it, we can ship it over, or we can come back to it, and we can actually have a tiny home living, which is what we both actually want in far in the future. You know?
Right.
It just feels so much more freer, you know.
It is. You're not settled. You're not working to pay the mortgage. You're actually living. And maybe there will be this exactly like this tiny home or something, but it's paradigm shifting. It's really focusing on the living and finding the dwellings as you go or in other ways. But we all know that many people in our lives, you guys have, I'd imagine, have siblings, have family members, that are paying the mortgage, that are working to pay for the life that we all believe we should be having. And not to say that a lot of people aren't happy in some of those lives, but if people are feeling squeezed for any reason, whether it's because of COVID, whether it's because of, the effects of COVID, right? And causing, calling you to sort of rethink your priorities, rethinking your life, evaluating and thinking about it. I mean, we all, there's the term of bucket lists, there's people have things on their vision boards or on that bucket list of things that I want to do in my lifetime. And what many of us who go on this hero's journey, that's just it's a nice umbrella to describe. We can call it the ascension journey. We can call it so many different things, right? Finding your true self, living the adventure, whatever we do want to ascribe to that. It is listening inside for who you really are, what your natural attractions are. And then if you sync up with a partner, as you guys did, Joanna, you had to go through like a quantum leap with yourself and practice that a little bit. Like, can I actually do this? And then your conversations also centered around, we'll figure it out. There's this two things when you guys were talking today. This woman has an online business school that I've attended. I might have mentioned this to you guys privately before, but one of her phrases is, start before you're ready. So Lee, where you were talking about those 10 years, and there would always be these things like, I'm going to go do these things. But then and then you get caught up in the mundane, and you get caught up in the working, and then you don't quite get to the adventure that you're working to have. So a lot of people think I have to save this much money. I have to have this much. What we set these parameters that may not even be true. I'm not saying no preparation, no planning, no visioning, that kind of thing, no thinking things through. But it's a fine line between thinking things through and staying in the trapped life that many people might be feeling, and feeling into that visioning and knowing that solutions and possibilities and other things will open to you. And I don't know if, like, for me, we're doing this podcast, but it was back in 2015 or very early 2016 for me that I was getting nudges that I should start the blog, and I had these bigger messages to get out, but I wasn't ready. I thought, but I still have to write this article, or I still have to publish this book, or I want to work on that course that I want to develop. And you can do that like forever and never start the journey, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why I can really see in you guys, of course, you guys took the leap, but as it was happening, because I was in communication with you guys as this was unfolding, I know that in my own way. And so when that woman, her name is Marie Mohler, that's one of her phrases, is start before you're ready. Something, none of us can really explain it. Something kind of magical, mystical happens that when you thought that you wouldn't have enough, or you weren't ready, or you weren't prepared, whatever that enoughness is, that's part of the fears and the doubts in the journey that come to find all of us, right? It's part of the ego's, the way it processes. You start to realize that in the preparing it, by becoming it, right, you transcend those limitations somehow. It's hard to explain to people who haven't lived this yet, but there is something that happens when you take the next step that you can take, right? That's what I did. I thought I couldn't find anybody to build my website for me, that little story. And either it was too expensive, or I didn't feel like they understood what I was trying to do. And finally, as the universe would have it, I drew into my experience when I was committing more that I was going to start before I was ready. I knew I had to have a website so I didn't even know I was going to be podcasting then. No clue whatsoever. I thought I was just going to be a little blog writer and maybe a few people would read it every month, right? Maybe a once a month post or something. And that started the ball rolling. And I manifested this tutorial online that teaches you how to build a website. And I liked the look of the website. It like totally connected with me. And it was a 3-hour tutorial. And it took me like 4 months to build the site because every 2 minutes was like a day of my life to implement, you know, the things that he was saying I needed to put together. But that was start before I was ready. And I didn't know it was going to be 4 months. But in that period of time, I had the website and then I just started sharing my messages. And before long, you're in the adventure and you're doing the doing and you're being the being. You've become the thing that you thought you had to do all these things before you were ready, right?
Yeah.
You build it as you go. You live it as it's unfolding.
And also we still learning, or at least for me, I'm still learning to kind of trust the universe, because most of my childhood, I've learned not to trust people, not to trust the universe or God. For me, I was just this little alone being, completely forgotten. And over the years, even when I was working my 3D job, I still did a lot of healing. So that was kind of my investment in myself, similar to you, Marie, that I invested in a lot of courses and retreats and healing and all sorts of stuff. But now being on this journey, actually being here in Costa Rica and not knowing, you know, where the next week will take us or how we're going to sustain ourselves for the longer term, it's kind of really forcing us to be more present and not to go too much into the future, because as soon as we go into the future, you know, where we're going to be a year from now, we go into some kind of anxiety.
Right.
But we both kind of know there's no way we can go back to our old lives anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, like, for me, I kind of sometimes have too much trust, maybe in some aspects of things, but yeah, in terms of the anxiety of certain things, it does come every now and then, so it's not always perfect, but it kind of came about again from work, and I feel like this is important to mention, because just like you said, you kind of took the step and built your website, we took the step and did our own thing, but there's a good example of this colleague I was working with. I mean, he was a bit of a negative person. He was always kind of having a go at certain peoples because they might have been vegan or something like this. It was a bit silly, but he also kept saying that I have to do this job for the rest of my life because my pension is no good. I don't have a pension, and this job never gave me one, and this is the only way to support my rent. And he didn't even own his own house, and he must have been like maybe just under 60, 55 at the time.
Wow.
And this kind of thinking, again, is that programmed working in you, thinking this is how I have to live my life, therefore I will, you know. And I just kept thinking to myself, because he said this out loud, I just don't want to be that person. I never planned to be that person anyway. Like, I remember like a few years before, I used to say to people, I did all these adventures, like I said to you, I did kayaking, I went traveling quite often, and people said to me, oh, I wish I could do that. And I said to them, you know, what is your wage? It's basically higher than mine, so why can't you do it? It says, because I have to save for a house, I have to do this. And I'm like, well, you don't have to do any of that. I choose not to, for example, you know. And that was the important thing throughout my life. And even though I had this kind of like stepping stones to go through, or do I need to save money, do I need to do this, I don't know, it was like everything felt right at the time I needed to leave, you know. I've seen all these kind of negative side of people, all the positive sides of people, and put that together kind of opens you up. And yeah, and like you said, there is a bit of preparation. So I'm going on and on here, but I feel like it's important. But there is a bit of preparation, and I think really it only needs like a year if you know what you want to do. I decided I wanted to teach English, not to be a product designer, so that I could support this if I struggle for money, for example, at any time. Not that I believe I will, but I can also stop in a city for a month to teach English. So I did a course, an online course to begin with, TEFL, and decided I liked it. So I decided to do a more affiliated course, CELTA. which most people are familiar with. They teach English, and just did it. And that was actually 2 years ago. I'm still stuck in a little bit of a cycle of, oh, I need to get a bit more money. And then I decided to be a personal trainer as well, just for something else as a backup, in case I want to come back and do something different. And all this unfolded in the last few months, just before meeting Asha, like we explained before, and it's just, I find it incredible how it kind of, life brings it all together, at the right time.
It is amazing. And I think whether you have the experience you had, Joanna, as a child, where you felt like there was no God, no spirit, no universe, no guardian angel, behind you guiding your life, to journeying into a world where you see more of that come to life in your life. And everything that you both just described, and Lee, you too, it's kind of there is this preparation, and there's a letting go of the beliefs that don't serve you. And there are many. There are just too many to name. Just like you talked about all the stuff you had to clean out, the literal physical stuff in your lives that you'd spent money for. That's the same thing. If you could sell your thoughts, there's a lot of people who wouldn't buy them, right? Because they don't want them either. Everybody wants to get rid of those thoughts that don't serve us and that don't really truly empower us to be who we are. And we have so many gifts. Like what you guys are doing and the messengers that you are right now is, to me, it's just beyond extraordinary. From the moment I heard of your meeting, but then I heard about the connection about traveling. And that's something, I want to continue on in this conversation today, so that people know, where did you go, right? Where did you eventually, how did you find, of all the places in the world to go, how did you choose where you were going? And then just a little bit about where you are now and how you're living it. And then these are seeds planted for a much, more conversations, but diving deeper into the living of the hero's journey, where every day you step into the unknown, which is, for some people, they might be listening and feel terrified, but for many people, there is a rising hero inside all of us that truly, and Lee, you language this so well, so many people crave the life that you were even living when you would do your 3-month stints here or 3 months there. They wanted the life, but they didn't know how to get there. It seemed impossible, or they felt like they'd taken on so much burden with debt or responsibilities or commitments or all kinds of things that they just couldn't find a way. But I know people who, married couples with children, people in all different ways, where you'd say, oh, you can't do that because, you have to stay where you are so your kids can grow up in the schools. And whatever all those beliefs are, there is this process of lightening the load, of really starting to take inventory of who your companions are, which we think they're the people in our lives, but it's really the thoughts that we think every day that either keep us in the lives that we've been living or that liberate us from the lives. Thoughts can liberate, but thoughts can incarcerate. And that's also so much a part of the journey that you guys have been living. And so let's do this for now. I'd love to have you. So how did you pick the spot on the map, or the country anyway, where you guys wanted to go?
More Joanna's department. I mean, okay. I actually wanted to start from my house and just not take a flight at all. But of course, with the pandemic in place, everything felt like it was in lockdown. So I had no idea when I could travel, but meeting Joanna really opened that up.
Yeah, I think when we met, we both realized that we loved South America, and we wanted to explore South America because this is a country, there's good food here, and people dance on the streets, and it's kind of that Latin American vibe that we both got attracted to. And then we kind of, I looked kind of, okay, what countries are open? And we both didn't really want to do the V word.
Yes, yes.
And also we didn't want to do any testing because we don't believe in it at all. And so the only country that was allowing tourists in June, where we wanted to travel, was Costa Rica. So we kind of looked into the flights, And I felt strongly that Costa Rica was the place to go, because I had kind of a hunch type of feeling that even for the vaccinations and everything, Europe will go into even more lockdowns. And I kind of had a feeling that it is going to be difficult to travel in Europe. And I thought South America might be actually a little bit behind with these things, so it might be easier to travel. So I kind of, yeah, I shared that kind of strong feeling with Lee, and we decided to come to Costa Rica. The only thing that we had to do was to buy special COVID insurance, which cost us like $200 just to get into the country.
Wow.
But we didn't have to do the injections or PCR tests. So that's kind of stirred our choice to begin with. And we knew also that Costa Rica was going to be quite a challenging place to bike because it's a very volcanic area. There's lots of active volcanoes here and inactive ones, and it's a very hilly country here. You get some really steep hills, but we didn't realize that's how hard it would be on the bikes until we got here.
Yeah, it's quite funny because the first hill we kind of realized this is what it's going to be like. We got this app that tells you what the altitude is going to be like, or the incline decline for the biking. And I said, okay, we're going. And of course, I'm a bit more suited for this. I've trained for this a bit more, so I was a little bit ahead. And then as soon as I turned around, like one of the first corners on our first longer biking journey, the hill must have been like 90 degrees or something. I don't know, but seriously, I think it must have been like 45 degrees. If you know what that is, that's just insane. And we couldn't even get up it. I had to get off, then some guy helped us push it up, and then there was a guy who gave us a lift of a truck, and we didn't turn that down so quickly. So there's been times where we had to get by with help, but also times where we did it ourselves.
Yeah. But that's how we ended up in Costa Rica. Our choice was
went a bit ahead there.
Yeah, our choice was basically helped by where can we go without doing something that we don't believe in.
Yes, it's so important. And that's also setting the vibrational tone of really the foundation that's going to create the whole adventure. You set that tone that then therefore attracted you to that country and the choices that you made to line up with that. Of course, it goes without saying to our listeners that not only were you lightening the load back in the UK to get ready for this trip and researching where you were going, but there was also the very important biking equipment. Joanna, you didn't even own a bike. So you basically sold your car and you bought this very expensive bike.
Yeah, so the price of the bike was exactly the same amount that I sold my car for, which was like an Audi convertible.
It's amazing. And yet that was your new transportation that also by securing these things though, you then knew that you were putting together the resources and the things that you needed. So you were going to have transportation where you were going. You didn't need to have the V, as you called it. Yes, you were going to be able to travel, in the ways at least that you had intended. And yet what I'm also hearing, and for our listeners too, is that they're not like booking in a hotel and staying for 6 months. So that was the key. That's a key part of their journey that I want to spotlight a little bit, is that there's nobody greeting you. You don't have people with the signs, looking for Joanna Plaza and Lee Peters, right? To pick you up this spa treatment and experience. This was also a lesson and leap of faith because you were going to figure it out once you got there, right? You were going to have some money to stay, maybe places here, a little bit of B&Bs or something, some kind of accommodation. But
we always try to, we kind of on a tight budget, so we have this app called Couchsurfing, so we always try to find people who could host us for free, and that actually led us. Sometimes these people who we find on the app, they say, oh, I have some friends on a coffee plantation and maybe they could have you. And that's, for example, how we ended up for a week and a half camping outside of someone's house on someone's patio for free.
In a beautiful mountainous place, in a beautiful garden, by the way, I have to mention.
Yeah, and sometimes we stay for free, and sometimes we cannot find anyone who could host us for free, and we have to pay for hostel. But for example, now we are on this beautiful farm where we do a few hours work every day in return for food and accommodation. And accommodation is a tent, but the food is like so healing and beautiful. So we are so grateful to be here. I know I'm jumping ahead, but these are the different things. So sometimes we stay with a couch surfer, sometimes with friends of couch surfer.
And also we sometimes just if we're really tired after biking, we even just knock on people's houses, ask if we can camp outside their house. Of course we have a tent, and there's not been one person who's turned us down from that. We've got to stay free. They offered us food, and this is the thing, we're kind of like, you know, giving and receiving in such a beautiful way this way. And it's, everyone always has this idea, if you travel you have to have some sort of hotel. Maybe people don't travel often, think it has to be an expensive hotel, but of course you've got cheaper options out there, and even free options if you're willing to take that step.
Yeah, so sometimes we stop, we are so tired, we can't ride anymore because it's getting dark. Oh, there's a house, let's see if we can maybe camp in the garden. And they usually let us to camp in the patio, so we are protected from the really heavy rain, because it really rains heavily here in Costa Rica, where there's a rainy season here right now. But yeah, usually we offer the shower, some food. And these are the people who, most of the time, they have nothing. They're not like rich houses, you know, mansions. A couple of times they were just like poor farm workers, and that they happen to have a room. We didn't even have to camp. They just said, oh, here's a room. And they live in such poor conditions. And
their lives are, that's where I think richness truly comes from, you know.
Yeah.
The lives you live, not the money you own. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's so what you're doing too gives people an opportunity to express our humanity, right?
Yes,
Truly,
exactly.
where we see each other as, you know, in the end, the expression of namaste, where I am another you. And when you come knocking, it gives them an opportunity to listen inside. It sounds like, though, would you say the culture where you are in Costa Rica, like in the UK, if people did what you're doing, would people open their doors, or would they be like, yeah, no solicitations, please?
I think a bit less.
I think, yeah, less common, but I think like anywhere, if you're in the countryside of some place, I feel they're more welcoming, more opening, more inviting. But if you're in a city, they're programmed to be closed off.
More protected.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the same everywhere, to be honest. But here's mostly countryside, you know, so you get lots of wonderful people.
Yeah, but generally Costa Ricans are very hospitable, and their main kind of a greeting here is called Pura Vida, which means like a simple life, happy life. And we noticed when we stay with other people that they have very little possessions. They don't have their houses, you know, full of sound equipment and TVs, and you know, they just have a few clothes and some food and some cooking equipment, but really they don't have much. And they kind of, their life kind of express that Pura Vida saying, and they say it, you know, when they greet you, they're saying it when they say goodbye, they're saying it as a thank you. They use it in so many ways.
It's so beautiful. And I can imagine, like, as much as there's been huge learning curves in this whole process, because I don't remember, and we'll probably close this out for now, but we'll, you know, soon, and we'll come back again. But from the time you guys met to the time you left the UK, was it, how many months was it? It wasn't that long.
I know, it's full.
About 3 months. Yeah, we met at the beginning of March, and we flew to Costa Rica on the 23rd of June.
Right. And so, and you've 23rd of June, and so now it's September, so you've almost been there 3 months.
Yes. Yeah, our visa is actually running out here, so we are thinking
ways to renew it or do something else. We're not sure yet. We really don't know.
And we feel go to another country, to explore another country which is open and doesn't require vaccinations and PCR tests. And not because some countries are still closed here. So we have a limited choices, but we still have a choice where to go next.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. And so that's something else. But again, when you're living in the journey, you're aware of, that kind of those sort of time parameters. And your goal, I think that's another thing I wanted to say. And then I want to ask you guys a question before we close. Your goal is to not return. Your goal is not to like circle around the same places you've been. You continue to travel and go to new places where you haven't been, right? To do as much of the country in a way that you can, given the temperature, like the rainy seasons and, factoring in all those kinds of things. So
yeah, we're always trying to find new places, of course. Sometimes it does bring you in a circle. For example, we did the Pacific coast, and it brought us back to San Jose, which is where we started. I mean,
yes.
But then we kind of ventured up a little bit north. But I mean, the idea was in my head originally was to make a linear direction in some way. Originally, I had a kind of plan to do a zigzag, kind of like going from north to south direction to see all these places. But being in Costa Rica and the countries being locked either side, we don't know where to go. We're kind of going around Costa Rica for now, and just like I said, it's bringing back to what I wanted, to bring things slowly, take your time. It doesn't matter if we have to repeat, but it's just bringing us to new adventures anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and for now we might actually go in the opposite direction that we are originally planning, because we are planning to go south.
Yeah.
And at the moment things are looking like we actually might go north of Costa Rica, so it could be Mexico, could be Nicaragua.
But I feel these things are kind of calling to us in the same time, so maybe there's a reason we can be there at this time as well and see some amazing things. So yeah, we'll see what brings us the next few days. Yeah. So
we are learning to be flexible to, where the universe is trying to take us.
Yeah,
right. And there is that for you, and I'm sure all this is going to come back around. We'll talk about these things, but you are seeing the universe have your back. You are feeling supported, and people open their doors or let you camp in their place or let you exchange for food and a place to stay. It's so beautiful. Like, I feel like we've just like barely scratched the surface of this, but I want to ask you two questions. You want to tell me the story of these two bears?
Yeah, sure. So maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, it was actually my late nan, who gave me this. And it meant quite a lot for me that I didn't want to touch it. Sometimes when you like things so much, you want to leave it in one place. And she said for me, this would bring you luck. You can take it to your South American trip in 2016. But I didn't take it because I didn't want to lose the bear. And I regretted that when I came back. And shortly after, about a year or two later, my nan did pass away. And it was kind of this point when I thought, okay, this is part of me and my nan's connection. I want to take this bear everywhere around with me. And I've taken it so far to like Iceland, trips around the UK, and it always kind of goes by my side. And this female called Peace Bear actually came from another friend who said, well, I have this bear that I don't use. It can be the girlfriend. So now we have a couple, and my mum actually made these little world shirts for it.
Jackets.
Yeah, with a heart inside this bear as well. And it just kind of means so much to me to bring them everywhere, to let them enjoy the journey as much as we. And they currently sit in the front of our bikes, sort of.
And they are part of we always take photos of them by the waterfall or in some kind of funny spots to show the bear's journey as well.
That's amazing. Well, I could see that too. And you guys, you do have a Buy Me a Coffee site webpage, right? And I could see these guys in some of the pictures of like, I did something for a grandmother. Interestingly, that you mentioned your grandmother, Lee. A grandmother, I visited a family home that I had never seen before. And my daughter and I, when she was much younger, had the idea. There was this whole theme of chipmunks on that trip when we went to visit her. Same thing. We got there were chipmunks who came up on the porch. They were very much a part of the whole experience. So we got a little stuffed chipmunk. and took pictures like in every room in the house, right?
Mhm.
This chipmunk, and you had to find the chipmunk in the house. It was actually very creative and very fun. And we still love, because we haven't been back to that place. His grandmother passed away, but we have that. We have those stories. We have the chipmunk, Chippy the chipmunk tells the story. And your bears even tell the story of like the places you've been, right? They tell a story, and who knows what that'll be a part of, whether you'll write children's books or, you never know where the adventure is going to lead you guys, right? Whether you'll
start writing a children's book character, but I kind of like put that aside for now, but yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
So there's so many things that want to come through us, and by you saying yes to the adventure, all of these things become possibilities, and then they become experiences, right? That's what it is. It's yes, and then it becomes a possibility, and then it becomes an actual reality, and it becomes your experience, it becomes your life. So I love that story, and that your grandmother is traveling with you in this way, right? And has given you this gift, and there you are, this couple that came together. You both felt that nudge for like you to go to that place that one day and get out your sketchbooks, and Joanna, for you to say, I'm going to go, and you were missing Snowy, and that was part of the impetus even in your healing journey to be walking. This is what we're all called to, this adventure at this point in time. I think we're all being shown that the lives we've been living, we've outgrown a lot of what we thought our worlds were, right? And what they were meant to be. And not everybody's hearing the call. Some people are still looking for that security, still wanting to stay in a well-defined box because that's where they feel safe. I think we're learning, we're all like pioneers of this new world, this new earth that is birthing. From some of the people, some of our listeners here at the foundation are aware that there is this like shift in consciousness that's happening, this awakening on the planet. And some of that awakening is just saying yes to more, just saying yes to something more than what you're currently living, whether that's taking an art class, online even, whatever it is, but it's yes to expansion. It's yes to an adventure. It's yes to listening for some adventure that maybe not be tapping on you on the shoulder yet, that you can clearly hear, like you guys were hearing it, but it's finding its way to you. And that's where you start to learn that the universe not only has your back, the universe is actually partnering with you in the form of energy through your thoughts,
Yeah.
and your feelings, and your attractions. And you guys answer those calls, even to make the connection point, to then in 3 months from meeting to leaping. It's extraordinary. And I definitely, there's so much to talk about. I know there's many aspects of the journey that I know our audience will want to live and experience through you guys, right? Through what your experience, and voicing those things, how you're finding ways to make things work, or where there's something that's unknown, or you don't know where your next meal is, or where you're staying that night, or how far you're going to ride that day, or all those things.
And I just wanted to quickly mention, as we are closing, that it's kind of nice synchronicity that we are in a place called Ojo de la Tigra, which means eye of the tiger. And the mountain that we are on the top of the mountain at the moment, and it's called the Magic Mountain. So it feels like we are, meant to be here. We are in this magical place. That's kind of
just like us, same kind of level of thinking. It's amazing.
Yes, and we receive some beautiful food here that we feel like it's very healing for us.
Yes.
And they, grow things organically, and it's more like a retreat than a farm to us. And so I just thought, at this moment in time, we are in this kind of magical place. And let's see where we talk next, where we'll be.
I also feel it's kind of important to mention as well, like taking people who are like stuck in their cubicle. Of course, it is possible, because I'm doing this with no savings on my back. I'm purely using the teaching money that I'm teaching English a little bit to kind of support this trip, and that's it. And I have to trust the world. And on top of that, maybe we can talk about this another time, for those who out there who are also diabetic. I am a type 1 diabetic, doing all this with the you know, with the expectation of that everything will come in its time, even like my medication. Also, I'm in the process of trying to heal that side of my life as well, to renew my body, you know, as well.
Yes, it's so profound when you do begin to live this way and you open to that more. It is amazing how magical things, the magic mountain manifests, but everything that you need shows up exactly. And there may even be healers along your journey that teach you about a particular food or a particular plant medicine or something else. You know, there could be different layers to this journey that even yet, you know, because you're still in it, but you're open to it. And I think that's the biggest hurdle for many people, is just becoming open to listening to what guidance you have is inside.
Yeah, because I mean, in the past, I was so resistant of the type 1 diabetes being able to heal. You know, I said you need a medication. That's what I'm dependent on. Everyone's told me I have to do this through my life. I also got underactive thyroid because of diabetes. So I think, okay, it's all part of it. But this is kind of the point when I got this thyroid issue. I said, I'm a bit more open-minded. I said, I'm not going to be on this forever. I'm going to find a way to, you know, find a way to heal myself. And now it's all kind of coming together in my life, and it'd be interesting to talk about that another time.
Yeah, and we're learning about all these beautiful medicinal properties of every single plant.
Everything.
Yeah.
I was just with someone the other day, and again, this is definitely a conversation, the plants, the medicines. It's something that in the experience where you are, it's like the simple life. There's like a life force to that, and a consciousness where people are, you know, can connect into that. And then in our modern world, in our cities and all these things where we're so used to doctors prescribing that's the only way to heal, there are so many ways to heal. And I myself have healed from so many things, from incredible energy medicines, plant medicines. And the key there too is also where your belief system is, right? Where your orientation is, where your vibrational connections are. So if you believe that I just can't heal from this, well, the universe will conspire to make that be your experience. And there are countless stories of so many people that transcended and healed and lived beyond cancer or whatever else it might be.
Yeah.
So you are an inspiration, Lee, though, how you guys are living and the physicality of your life right now, right? It does require quite an endurance and a stamina, and yet you're feeding your spirit in a whole different way than, you know, maybe you were more at risk in your job. In the boxes you were living, you might have been more at risk, right?
Yeah, the stress was also, I think, having an impact.
Yeah, so
both of us.
It was, right? And you realize, you're probably healthier on so many levels, living free and really connected. The closer to the earth that we get, I think the more we actually liberate and we heal. And I think that is the craving that so many people, we want to return to those connections. And so I know you have the dogs barking. You guys are in the Magic Mountain on the farm, and you're just going to be there a few more. Is it just a few more nights? I forget what you said, but
a few more days. Yes,
a few more days. Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you if you guys would be willing to share an insight with people who are thinking this way. I know there are people who are craving the life that you're living, seeking that, you know, visioning it, wishing they could live something different than what they're presently having, whether that means they take a major, you know, flight and a trip across a great big ocean or not, whether it just means walking down the street and saying hi to somebody that they've always wanted to have a conversation with. There's so many ways to take the adventure. What would you guys maybe say to your former selves like 6 months ago, or what would you say to our audience of somebody who's living what you were living then, when you didn't know that you were going to be really launched in this way? What would you say to somebody who knows they want something more, but their bank account doesn't support it, right? Not the logistics of their life don't support it, the debt they're carrying? What would you say to that?
Okay. Well, I would say take that leap, and it's not easy, but the universe will show all the different ways that can support, you know, can help you to get rid of the doubts, can support you. So for example, there are ways to stay with people for free. you know, so maybe you don't need as much money as you think you do. There are ways, you know, you can do a little bit of work in return for food and accommodation. So you can either look for it or it will be shown to you. But, you know, if the call is in your heart, then try to take that tiny little step towards it. And then maybe later you will be able to take a bigger step and a bigger step. And eventually, before you know it, you're just going to be living your dream.
Yeah, and of course, for me, it comes in steps as well. I mean, like, first you have to really envision what it is that makes you truly happy, how to get there. So it might not be traveling like us, it might be to start a certain business or become a certain coach or something, but you need to believe that it is possible, you know, regardless of what it could be. And I always used to have like pictures of what I wanted to do to keep inspiring me. It was on my desktop at work and things like this. And it's always, sometimes you're not able to say tomorrow I will go, but sometimes you can, and you decide that. And if you can't, you just try to put the stones in place of what you need to do, whether it's learn a new course before you go, or do something else that kind of brings you that abundancy. But the most important thing is that your medical condition and money should not be a factor in this at all. And I've proven that twice over with the fact that I've got lack of finance and currently a medical condition. Yeah.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well, it's just a miraculous, I'm feeling the magic of where you are right now today, just to connect, you know, this sort of timeless connection, even though there's differences in the time zones, you know, we always connect with the people we're meant to connect with. My life has been so blessed connecting with you, Joanna, and then I've since met Lee, and I've just absolutely adore the two of you. And I know when I heard the trip you guys were planning, I know that this is meant to be seeded in people's consciousness, that this way of living is possible, this emancipation from our former lives or our limitations in any case, right? So we are taking these steps in the hero's journey, all of us, those, some knowing that, some not knowing that yet. And I want to thank the two of you for joining me. Definitely we'll be having more conversations. I'm so grateful. And I want to thank our listeners for joining us at Whole Soul School and Foundation. And for these global spotlight conversations, we will have more of these to come. I invite you to visit us on our website at wholesoulschoolandfoundation.org, and you can find us on many of your favorite social media platforms. And I invite you to donate to support Good Vibes Broadcasting, conversations like these, and that also you can donate to support, and potentially we can begin to support people like these two beautiful souls. It's just another way of supporting people who are taking the hero's journey, and they're giving us insights from the journey. So if you feel inspired by this conversation, I invite you to go to our website and donate through the donate page. And I'll be sure to include a link for that below this video, so you can, you know, so that there's an easy pathway for you to support these positive messages. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. Blessings, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Joanna.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.